I call Tracy Martin.
Thank you very much, and can I thank the Minister for the call. Can I also acknowledge New Zealand First not only opposed the bill at second reading, we had made an attempt to have the bill sent back to Select Committee because we had such serious concerns around the criminality aspect of this bill. Can I make a statement now? New Zealand First will be supporting this bill through this reading. We will be supporting the Minister's SOP. We believe the Minister has been constructive. She has addressed our concerns and we believe that the bill now does what its purpose was and is set out in it. We will not be supporting the SOP by Claire Curran, nor will we be supporting the SOP by Mr Seymour. Part of the reason for New Zealand First taking the unusual step of attempting to have the bill sent back to Select Committee was to discuss the very point that Mr Seymour has in his supplementary order paper, so that we would suggest was his moment to support it, and since then a constructive relationship has been created between the Minister and myself, and that issue has now been addressed so that we are now comfortable. The purpose, sir, in part one, which seeks to the purpose, let's just go through it. It seeks to mitigate the harm caused to individuals by electronic communications and to provide victims of harmful digital communication with a quick and effective means of redress. It's about quick and effective because, and there's just been a bullying report come out, with regard to cyberbullying, over 31% of school students who took part in this survey agreed that cyberbullying was their problem at their school. Girls were more likely to say cyberbullying was a problem, 34% of all girls that answered and 26% of boys. Cyberbullying particularly, it's not just for our younger people, but it's an area that we hold particular concern, all those of us who are parents. It is an invisible threat. It's very difficult to find that individual, for an individual on their own, particularly a young person, to find and deal with the invisible person attacking them. So therefore this House must create a system by which they can be confident they can go to seek assistance to stop this attack. And I believe, and New Zealand First believes, that the approved agency is an enlightened approach to providing a trusted organisation, and the word trust is going to have to be earned, but we have to start somewhere. That it is the approved agency should provide that trusted organisation that a young person, their family, their school can ring up instantly and say, this has happened, how can we deal with it? And the approved agency, because, and I went through this again since second reading, I've sought more information from NetSafe and other organisations about how the approved agency would work, and now feel very comfortable that the first port of call would be for those for the individual or for the schools or for the families to contact the approved agency. The approved agencies will assess the threat to the individual. Every person that will ring them, we must assume, is ringing them because they believe they are being threatened, because they believe in some way. We cannot start from an assumption that they're just malicious or vexatious. We must start from an assumption that they are actually truly seeking help because they need to have some. When we start from that point, then they go to the approved agency. The approved agency will have a look at it. If necessary, the approved agency can talk to the school, the victim, the family, and say, really, have a look at this. Perhaps this is some things you could do. Or they could then go through the mechanisms inside the bill, they could then go to the poster. I'm not going to call them a perpetrator in the lowest level that we're talking about, to the poster, and say, hey, somebody's actually got upset about this. And you may or may not think it's upsetting to you, but what's the chances of your taking it down? That's the absolute lowest level that we're talking about. And the majority of people that we're talking about here will take it down because their intention was not to harm anybody. 90%, probably what goes up there that hurts somebody, a young person particularly, is not meant to do that. Now we need to talk about the other people such as the older adult and the young schoolgirl here in New Zealand who they had created a relationship through an online gaming situation. He had gained intimate photos of that young person. He then, Mr. Chair, Mr.
Tracy
Chair,
Martin.
this older male then began to blackmail this young woman into asking for more intimate information from her. He threatened her family, he threatened her school, he went in and hacked into her school and brought down her school site. Right now, and I, with all due respect, I give absolute respect, I believe everybody in this House wants to deal with this issue. With regard to starting with education and waiting, schools have been educating. We constantly educate around bullying, around how you should treat other people. The reality is we have a bit of an epidemic inside our school system at the moment, with at least 1/3 of our students answering that they are being affected through cyberbullying. And how can we say that actually, look, this is wrong and you shouldn't be doing it if there's no consequence when you do it? And that's the purpose of the consequence. And certainly I was unhappy, uncomfortable with the concept of criminality for our young people. There's quite clearly now, as the Minister has said, we've quite clearly outlined a process by which there can be fines applied. At the extreme end of this process, after the agency can do no more, after the individual has sought this assistance and they haven't got the outcome they want, and that stick is required. With every carrot, there must be a stick. There must be a consequence to deliberately going out of one's way to harm another person. There must be. Otherwise, everything else is a farce. So we hope that this is the answer for our families. We hope that this is the answer for our students. It's new. We're going to have to watch it. We're going to have to, the Minister certainly is going to have to make sure that the approved agency is appropriately resourced, has all the materials and the expert knowledge that they need to be truly, truly effective. But we have to do something, sir. And I take on board that possibly this went through the Select Committee faster than some may have liked. And I also take on board and mentioned previously that due to Roastbusters, there was some emotive language and there was certainly an emotive environment around this. We have seen some disgusting displays of behaviour using the invisibility of the internet. And I also acknowledge that when I was at NetSafe that some people had an opinion that we should let the internet have at it. The politicians should stand out of the way and we'll come and pick up the pieces afterwards. We would argue, sir, we already have pieces. We already have a large group of young women who supposedly a crime has not been committed against, who therefore cannot access any support services other than through a special provision by the police, because there was no legislation that covered them. And it's time to not have that. We must pass legislation that at least those young women could have gone to very quickly, instantly, and actually had, hopefully, something done about it in the first instance. But we must also, when we have the arrogance of some of the people committing these crimes against other citizens, we must have some way that they will be punished. There is no alternative. Kia ora.